If happiness is something that seems to occur in your life rarely, in between long bouts of struggle, worry, and maybe even some downright misery, listen up. I'm going to show you how to change all that as fast as you can snap your fingers and without having to perform a single hocus pocus exercise. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Trevor, and for the longest time, I had no idea how to be happy. My mum died when I was 9, so although my dad loved me and my brother, he was grieving, so I didn't have a role model of happiness at home. By the time I grew up, I believed happiness was something that came only to a lucky few, and that life was mostly a struggle at every level. I spent years, from my mid-teens to my early 40s, trying to figure out how to be happy. It's why I trained as a psychotherapist and what led me to study metaphysics, aka the law of attraction. When I eventually found the answers, there was no big flash of light. Well, unless you count the stars I saw after I hit myself on the forehead in a huge dole moment. Along with anything you or I desire, whether it's money, love, a bigger house or car, happiness is so simple to find because, well, I'll explain that in this video. Before I start, you might like to know that I've written a short ebook. It's free, which explains the effortless nature of manifesting. It's called Let's Manifest a Ferrari, and you can get a copy just by clicking the link I'll put at the top of the description. Among the philosophies I looked at, albeit very briefly, during my quest to find happiness was Buddhism. One concept you'll find there is that of mental strength, which their teachings say is crucial to maintain happiness. I used to think of mental strength along similar lines to physical strength. I thought you had to go to some kind of mind gym until your mind could handle any difficulty the way a strong man can lift enormous weights. But I no longer think that's what the Buddhists mean by mental strength. No effort of willpower is required to tame or master your thoughts once you realize that your thoughts are not in charge. We tend to lead with our head in our culture. We put our ability to think and reason at the top of the hierarchy of our abilities as human beings. But your thinking mind cannot make you happy. I can tell you to think of the funniest comedian you've ever seen or to recall your most hilarious memory, and although those thoughts may make you smile or even laugh, it doesn't mean you're happy. If you're currently living a life that sucks, you may have a few moments of respite as you recall those things, but when the laughter and the smile fade, your life will still suck. With that discovery made, the only logical place to turn is to your outside circumstances. Fix your money problems and you'll be fine. Oh, and your relationship issues. Oh, and your job. Not forgetting your boss. And wouldn't it be nice if your car was newer? Okay, let's imagine you get all of that fixed. Would that give you happiness? Well, what about the state of the world? There are people being cruel to animals and even children. There are political decisions being made that are bad for the economy. And what about the environment, pollution and global warming? Has all that got to be fixed before you can be happy? Or should you learn how to bury your head in the sand, stick your fingers in your ears and loudly chant la 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 so that you can live in some fairy tale fantasy world of happiness? No. None of those things are the secret to happiness. And none of them would count as mental strength either. Let's try again. In order to know if you're happy or not, it might be a good idea to agree on what it actually feels like to be happy. It's not euphoria, nor is it jumping for joy all day long. In fact, I'd say it's possible to be quite serious and quiet and still be very happy. Happiness isn't vanity or egoism either. Yet it does include a deep contentment with your body and your personality, in other words, how you show up in the world. Liking yourself isn't the same as egotistical pride, though. The world may well be in a pickle, This isn't about ignoring or denying those things. It's about recognizing that they'll still go on whether you're a happy person or a downright miserable one. The thing is, if you want to actively engage in trying to make a difference to anything, you're far more likely to be effective if your energy is positive and upbeat than if you're morose and a doom-monger. The key point I'm wanting to make here is that what's happening outside isn't the cause of your happiness. By the same token, it's not the cause of your misery either. So, what does cause happiness? How is anyone supposed to find it, much less keep it as a permanent state of being? Well, the truth is, you can't find it. I'll tell you why. I once heard the story of an old cat whose attention was caught by the sight of a little kitten who was frantically running around in circles, chasing its tail. The old cat stopped washing his paws for a moment and watched the little cat exhausting itself as it tried to catch its tail. When the kitten stopped for a moment, the wise old cat asked it, "Why are you chasing your tail?" Looking up, the kitten replied, "Well, I've decided that happiness is in my tail, so I'd like to catch it." The old cat nodded. "I remember thinking that happiness was in my tail when I was about your age," he said between nonchalant licks of his paw. "And I remember chasing it in circles like that too. Then, one day, I gave up and walked away. And do you know what happened?" "What?" asked the kitten, wide-eyed. "Happiness just followed me around." You can't find happiness because you've already got it. It's your default setting. If human beings were born with a restore to factory defaults button, we'd be happy the moment it was pressed. Ask any newborn baby. I said earlier that your thinking mind can't make you happy, but listening to your thoughts can cause you to be in a state of unhappiness. One piece of advice I remember hearing from Tony Robbins was when he described the profound change it made in his life when he decided to adopt the belief, there's always a way. You don't have to believe that, but here's a way you can test it, and I've done this many times in hundreds of contexts, but I'm going to assume you haven't. Next time you're stuck in a situation you can't find a solution to, just say to yourself, there's always a way. It will feel like you're lying to yourself because you can't see a way, and clearly you haven't found one. But let's add a few words to Tony's belief. What if it was, there's always a way, even if I don't know what it is yet? Not sure? Here are a couple of well-known examples that might nudge you into at least giving the notion some house room in your head. For many years, it was deemed impossible to cut a canal through Panama. Engineers said it was impossible, and yet since 1914, the Panama Canal has remained one of the most important shipping lanes in the world. And here's an eco-fact for you. It was once deemed impossible to feed the world's growing population. Yet the development of high-yield crops and agricultural technologies during the 20th century averted widespread famine and transformed global agriculture. And that's from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, so I'm not making it up. Here's one more for you that's one of my favorites. When Henry Ford began manufacturing cars, he wanted a certain number of cars made every day. His engineers and workforce told him what he was asking for was impossible. Henry told them to keep thinking about it until they came up with a solution. The result? The factory production line, which reduced the assembly time for a Model T chassis from over 12 hours to about an hour and a half. In order to get to the new ways, you only need to stop listening to the thoughts that tell you something's impossible. And you only need to do that for a few moments. A couple of seconds is often enough. It works with everything, from global issues to business matters to your own personal problems. What does all of that have to do with happiness? Well, once you know that there's always a way, you have certainty that everything will be all right. And when things don't go according to your plan, and that will happen, then yes, you may be unhappy for a while. Grief, for example, is certainly not a state most of us would associate with happiness, and I'd agree, it's anything but. But that's an emotion you feel perfectly naturally at appropriate times. You will not feel that way forever, because that's not your default setting. Happy people can feel sad, angry, or any other emotion that's deemed negative. But to suggest this means happiness has vanished is like saying the sun isn't there anymore because there's a storm. A storm may cause havoc for a while, but no storm lasts forever. The sun does, and your happiness is like the sun. I can't be sure what the Buddhist teaching about mental strength means to them or what the original teachers of that idea had in mind. But for me, it's come to mean understanding the nature of thought. In other words, rather than using willpower to try to resist unwanted thoughts, which turns out to be close to impossible anyway, but instead understand that all thoughts are transient and pass through the mind in much the same way as clouds pass across the sky. When you see that, you also simultaneously see that the mind which is observing those thoughts is always clear and calm, just as the sun is always warm and shining, even when you can't see it or feel its warmth. And that calm mind is the source of your happiness. Thoughts and the feelings that accompany them will come and go. It's the nature of being alive and conscious. Sometimes there may even be storms, such as my dad had to face when my mum died when I was a child. Don't fight those. You can't fight the rain when it falls or the wind when it blows. You simply take shelter until it's over. Accepting emotional ups and downs and even storms is part of happiness. Once you see that the real you, the calm mind, is always there no matter what, then there's nothing you can't handle. And as you learn to let thoughts pass through like clouds, you'll also discover that no matter how impossible a problem seems, there truly is always a way. I know there's a lot to take in this video, so I hope you found it helpful. By all means, watch it again if that would help some points to become clearer. In the meantime, remember you can download my free ebook, Let's Manifest a Ferrari, from the link in the description below this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another video.